And I think what shifted in me at that point was, oh, like nothing is truly stable. So why am I acting like these other sides of me doesn't exist? Like, what if I give
Mm.
this a shot and see what could happen here?
Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Be Well Sis podcast. I am your host, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar. How has life been treating you? But more importantly, how have you been treating yourself? You know, we've talked a lot about cultivating joy and joy as being something that we need to be very intentional about on this podcast through various episodes, especially this year, though. So this year, I decided that I need some help in the joy department. I think a lot of us do, but I especially need some help in this season. I am calling this summer the summer of joy. So this is where my job, my work is to cultivate my happiness, to be joyful and to find the joy around me and within me. So I'll actually be documenting it a little bit on social media, on Instagram, but really I'll be doing the majority of my documentation of this process, this journey, and we get there behind the scenes of what's really going on. Will be on my Substack. So bewellsis.substack.com is where you can find that. I would love for you to follow along in the journey. And honestly, the Substack is going to be a true behind the scenes look at what's happening, not only in the podcast, so it could be some deep dives on things that we touched on in the podcast, but really like what's really going on in real life, right? Outside of the conversations that we have here. So it'll be a little group chat type of situation because you'll be able to engage and follow along and add your commentary. And I'm also thinking about just having like little meetups. I'll figure out how often I'll be able to do so. But again, I'm inviting you just to start, just to follow the Substack. Now that that is out of the way, I'm kind of on a tangent. Let's get more focused, realign, okay? And today I am joined by the brilliant Faye McCray. She is an attorney turned writer, media strategist, and the heart behind the newsletter called "What If It All Works Out." I love that name. Together, we explore the nuanced dance between work, identity, and wellness, especially for those of us who have had to shape shift to succeed in spaces not built with us in mind. We talk about what it means to raise children with intention, to lead with empathy in both business and in life, and how to reconnect with ourselves in a world that often demands that we stay disconnected. I really love this conversation. I actually felt like it honestly felt like somebody that I had known before because in so many ways our lives had some parallels to them. So with that being said, let's hop into today's conversation. As always, thank you so much for joining. I am so glad you're here. Be well, sis. So the way that I like to start off the conversation is by asking, how are you doing right now, PMS? So physically, mentally, and spiritually. You can go as deep or as not as you want to.
Goodness, what a question. Like, I have to make sure I answer it truthfully. Like, truthfully, like, allergies are kicking my butt. So
Mm,
physically, I'm like, what is going on and up in the sinus area?
yeah.
We're all going through it here. I'm in the DC area, so Maryland in particular, beautiful,
Yes.
lovely trees, lots of pollen.
Right.
Um, mentally okay. I feel like I'm kind of in between a big busy travel period.
Mhm.
But also my oldest son is getting ready to graduate high school.
Aw.
So, I don't know, just feeling like warm nostalgia. Just I'm so
Yeah.
proud of him. I'm so proud of like where we are right now. So I think I'm feeling good in that way. And then spiritually, I think same. I think that I'm
Good.
trying to be grounded and very present. There's a lot going on around us right now.
Yeah.
The world is worlding and in
Yeah.
like some huge ways. So I've been really intentional about how I'm spending my time and my energy and thoughtful. So,
Yeah.
I think I'm okay-ish.
Good.
Allergies.
Yeah, I hear you. The allergies are something else, and every year they just get worse, and
Worse and worse.
so I'm sending you love. I hope you feel better. Hopefully you find like a remedy, like a cocktail that works for you.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of raw honey from
Mm,
like the area because they say that it has like the proper allergens. So that way your immune system is not as excited. So
interesting.
it kind of has been helping a little bit.
I will
Of
try
course, with
anything. That sounds amazing.
yeah, that with the Zyrtec, of course, and yeah. But
Yeah.
it's that time of year. It's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to start off by talking a little bit about your childhood. So you grew up in Queens, is that correct?
Right? Yeah.
My husband's also from Queens.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, and then you moved to a predominantly white school, and I had the similar situation when I was in 5th grade. I think we moved,
Wow.
and so I would love to know what were your experience, specifically around what messages did you receive about like ambition and your
Yeah.
identity?
Oh, such a good question. So, I was also in the 5th grade,
Yeah.
and we didn't move, but my mother moved us to a
Mhm,
different school,
mhm,
in large part because she was on this just amazing and wonderful journey as a woman. Her and my father had recently separated, and she decided to go back to school. She had been
mhm,
largely sort of stay at home. So she went back to school at 41 years old, started pursuing her bachelor's and then her master's, and really just changed the whole trajectory of our lives at
mhm,
the time. And part of that meant, well, now I can put you in a better school, right? Now
mhm,
I can start paying attention a little bit more to kind of what I didn't like about here, and I have more options. So I ended up going from a school that I loved. Was largely a black and brown, it
mhm.
was my friends, Leela and Taisha, and,
Yeah.
she drugged me, like, kicking and screaming into this new
Mhm.
school because it felt like it was just on the other side of Queens, and,
Right,
if your husband's from there, it's not massive, you can get
right.
from one side to the other, but you would have thought she dropped me in another planet,
Sure.
because this new school was in an environment where, people had black nannies, and
Mhm.
there were only 2 other black students in the whole school, and they were siblings. They were twins.
Oh, wow.
And then there was me, right? Coming
Mhm,
from this environment where I was very much kind of rooted in my identity, student of old school hip hop, all the things, to this new environment. And I think what came with it was just this expectation that this was the place where we become better, right?
yeah.
This was the place where the opportunities are. This is the place where your dreams happen. It's when the seeds first got planted in me to become a lawyer, like all these kind of big dreams and aspirations took root there. But I think the subtext of a lot of that was that I had to be different, right?
Yeah.
You have to start speaking different. You start
Mhm.
wearing your hair different. You start
Yeah.
looking different in order to be adaptable and assimilate. So I think for me, the earliest memories I have of ambition are really rooted in assimilation,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
changing,
Yep.
becoming something different. And I think with that came a lot of great things in a sense that a lot of things started opening up for me. Like I started learning about different ways to be and different possibilities, but also there was a little bit of an abandonment as well.
Oh, that's real. That's
Yeah.
so real. Yeah. I think I was telling somebody this story recently about how when I first moved to the school in the suburbs, I was put in ESL classes for like the first 2 weeks. Mind you, I'm born and raised in America. Like,
Wow.
my parents are Haitian, right? So,
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
have, like, a bit of an accent because my even though I was always here, my first language was Creole because my grandmother raised me, and I learned,
Yeah.
English, like, through TV, cousins, of course, and then
Yes.
school. So, when my mom found out that I was in ESL, she's just like, "I don't understand." She's just like, "You speak
Wow.
English, like, you are American." And I did have a little bit of an accent, but, like, I'm in 5th grade. I know English. So I was telling the person this, I was like, "I know how to speak English, like, I've only ever lived here."
Yeah.
And what the message that I received is that I need to change how I talk, and I
Yeah.
need to change to, like, sound more like them.
Yes.
Um, and my mom raised hell at that school because she's just like, "What are you talking about? Like, my baby's from here. Like, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I would love to know, did the experience of being one of a few, did that translate or did you carry any of that as you navigated the corporate space? So, being an attorney and things of that nature.
Yeah. I'll say the thing that I think sometimes becomes difficult to say out loud when you become the only in a lot of environments, you slowly become accustomed to being the only. And I think for me, one of the things that I lost was what I felt was a real comfort with my own people, being
Yeah.
in, like, Black and brown environments because I was suddenly thrust into this environment, and then it was sort of when you're in a school in a place, it changes your whole social environment too. Those are the
Sure.
parties you go to, those are the it's what you
Yep.
do on the weekends, like, it just became all-encompassing. So even when I went to high school, even though it was a little bit more diverse, I was still accustomed to kind of being in environments where I was the only. So then my friend group, that's what it looked like, you know?
Mhm.
So I will say I probably got more used to being in environments where I was only than in
Mhm.
an environment where there were more of us,
Yeah.
which is why I was very intentional about going to Howard for law school.
Mhm.
Like, something is not right here. Like
Switch this up.
like like, I need to kind of reconnect. Best decision ever. I think
Mhm.
every young person should have an HBCU experience,
Mhm.
because it allowed me to root myself. I think you start to see, for better or worse, what a lot of people see when they see our community, and that's a monolith. You forget about the beauty and
Yeah.
diversity within our community.
Yep.
Suddenly I'm at Howard and there's those of us from North Dakota and from Tech, like, we're just from
Mhm.
everywhere. I met my husband at Howard. It was incredible. Um, but I'll say that for that reason, I think entering corporate America, it wasn't uncomfortable for me,
Yeah.
to be in those environments. I think it became uncomfortable when I started pushing back against those environments. Like, why does this look like this?
Mhm.
And how do we do something different? But I think assimilating came second nature.
Have you done things a little bit differently in terms of where you decided to raise your kids?
Yeah, 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 1,000%. I think part of the reason, I mean, you probably, when I was in my early 20s, if you had told me I wasn't gonna live in New York, I probably didn't even know what Maryland was, to be honest. New Yorkers can be so, like, New York centric, like,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like, what? You're more used to, I think, leaving the country than you are
Yeah. This
exploring
is
the US. But I will say, coming to Howard, coming to the DC area, it's, known as Chocolate City, being
Mhm.
surrounded by so many people of color, but not just that, but, like, upwardly mobile, like, people doing really well, like, that are really,
Mhm.
really ambitious, um, became just like, "Oh, this is an amazing place to raise a
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
and to be." And, it was we were very intentional about that, even choosing the neighborhood that we lived in.
Yep.
It's very diverse, but it's diverse in a way that there's also plenty of us, and,
Yes.
in a way that allows them to dream up things, not just success in the context of whiteness,
Mhm.
or otherness, but also see what it looks like, being who you are.
Yeah, yeah. That was a big decision for us too. That was really, really important that
Yeah.
our kids grew up around as many different types of people as
Yep.
possible, and
Yeah.
especially different types of us,
Yeah.
right? Super, super important. And I'm really, really happy with the decision. Sometimes I hate the commute to like bring them
Yeah.
into like, school is they go to school uptown, I'm in Charlotte,
Okay.
so I hate the commute, but I love our neighborhood, and I love their school too because their school very, very diverse,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, very, very important. I wanted them to have a really strong sense of self, but also knowing that there are so many different types of people in the world, and we're all beautiful and we all
Yeah.
matter, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
such an important knowing, I think,
mhm.
to just see. I think you learn so much about yourself, you learn so much about others, so it's important to be super intentional with that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I would love to talk a little bit more about your time in corporate America. And right now, a lot of us are like a lot of the world is dealing with just the uncertainty in
Yeah.
their workplaces because of the economy and political stuff. So, what advice do you feel for, or do you have for those who don't feel like they quite have their footing, especially those who have been in certain careers for like 10 plus years and they thought that this is where they would retire, right?
Yeah.
Um, any insight there?
Yeah, also, a really, really good question. It is a tough time. It is a really, really tough time, and not just because of like the socio-political climate like of it all, but also because we're just in a dawning of a new age. Like, I was just
Mhm.
reading something the other day about trucks being driverless now. Like, they're kind of which sounds terrifying, right? As big as
Yes.
trucks are, to not have a driver behind the wheel. But this is the age we're moving into, right? Like, so many changes are happening in technology, jobs that we felt like were tried and true. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't use ChatGPT in some
Yeah.
way, shape, or
Yep.
form. Like, AI is infiltrating all of our lives, so it makes sense that there would be a shift. It's not new, right? The
Yeah.
Industrial Revolution, I mean,
True.
throughout history, there have been times when there have been shifts in workforce. I think it's really, really important to just stay rooted in what you're good at and
Mhm.
what fills you with joy, where you can make your most impact as opposed to title. You know,
Mhm.
it's probably counterintuitive. We get so used to introducing ourselves by our title. Like, what do you do? I do this, you know.
Right.
But I think it's important to just start thinking about your skills differently, and not be afraid of a pivot, not be afraid to adapt. I think that really gone are the days where we just kind of commit to just a singular career path.
Yep.
I think that, you know, I worked in media for a good deal of time. That was the bulk of kind of my corporate experience after leaving law. And media is very vulnerable to AI, right?
Mhm.
And automation, and I felt like the folks that got so stuck on what was were the ones that got left behind. Like, this
That's true.
shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't have
Yeah.
AI doing this. We shouldn't have AI. It's happening, right?
Yeah.
What does it look like for you to, if you wanna stay in this career path, to adapt in a way where you embrace some of this newness? You know,
Yeah.
do you take a class? Do you learn some skills that are
Yeah.
kind of, attuned to this? Do you become an expert in this new thing that's coming in? I've seen some people do that, which I thought were brilliant. You know, or do I pivot? You know,
Mhm.
are there ways that the skills that I've learned in this one particular career path can be transferable to something new? You know,
Yeah.
and what does that look like for me to chart my path in that direction? You know, I've had quite a few pivots in my career, and I think core to that was a quote that, you know, I absolutely love, and kind of I have running in my head probably at any given moment, to stay stubborn in vision, but flexible in
Mhm.
details, right? The
Mhm.
details may change, you know, but that vision is what you stay true to.
Ooh, I really love that. So, speaking of the pivots that you've made in your careers, can we talk a little bit about that? Because from what
Yeah.
I understand, you went from practicing law for, like, a government entity, if
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
correct,
Yeah.
and then into writing. So, can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So, I practiced law for, you know, a little over 10 years.
Mhm.
It wasn't, it's not anything that I look back on and I'm like, "Oh, you know, that was awful." I
Mhm.
think I always had a very strong creative inclination, you
Mhm.
know, so but I also was taught in very many ways that that may not be the most realistic path, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do that little writing thing, but you know, go to law school, get the degree, pass the bar, do the things.
Mhm.
But it was a part of me that I never quite abandoned. Like, even
Yeah.
when I was practicing law, I was like, "Let me submit a poem over here," you know?
Oh, I love
When I
it.
had my son, I started mommy blogging and, like,
Mhm.
writing different articles for different things. So I was still nurturing that side of me, and then I just came to a point, you know, I talk about it a little bit in my TED Talk. There was a furlough, for the government. The government shut down, and at the time, it
Mhm.
was the first that I heard. I mean, it could have happened before then, but it definitely wasn't on my radar that it could
Yeah.
happen. I was taught that government jobs are like
That's
the
it.
pinnacle of stability, you know, like,
Yep.
this does not happen.
Yep.
And I think what shifted in me at that point was, "Oh, like, nothing is truly stable, so why am I acting like these other sides of me doesn't exist? Like, what if I give
Mm.
this a shot and see what could happen here?" So I remember having a very long dinner with my sister-in-law and her being like, "You're doing all this stuff on the side, why don't you start putting it on your resume and see if it can translate into something else?"
Mhm.
So LinkedIn wasn't what it was today, but it was sort of still starting to bubble up. So I started to put all of the articles that I had been doing. I created a website for myself, and was able to shift into a career in media, which was, you know, fantastic. It wasn't, you know, simple, but it wasn't as hard as I would have thought it would have been. And I
Yeah.
think it was because I leaned into those skills, right? I
Yeah.
didn't completely abandon my title, but I started to say, this is what this career has taught me. This
Yeah.
is my vision sort of for the direction, and let me figure out how I can tell that story.
Yeah.
So ended up moving into media and had, you know, a fantastic sort of run there, busy. It's corporate
Mhm.
America, all the things, burnt out
Oh
as many
gosh.
people do. And then just decided to start my own thing, which is, has been another pivot, but also very much in alignment with sort of my journey as a human.
So, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about your current, vision, your current baby, your project. What are you doing right now?
Yeah,
Mhm,
so when we talk about vision, versus details, I think what's
mhm,
always been very true to my vision is storytelling.
mhm.
I love, just from a human standpoint, hearing other people's stories, learning
Yeah.
about other people's journeys. I'm fascinated by people. I wanna talk about your husband. I know that you're Haitian, like, he's from Queens. I'm like, we got a
Yes.
lot of Haitians in Queens,
Yes.
like all the things, but I mean, I'm always fascinated by the kind of nuances and details of people's stories. And I think pairing that with sort of business and, when people start businesses, when they're in businesses, when they have a brand, they're looking for connection.
Yeah,
And I think very often, because of the pace of corporate America, we're just moving so, so, so fast
yep.
that we lose that element of connection. Like, what are we trying to connect on? So when I was sort of thinking about, entrepreneurship and going into consulting, I was like, oh, that's my sweet spot,
Mhm.
being able to work with people to be able to communicate their value and connect with audiences, whether or not you're looking for funding or whether or not you're looking to sort of broaden an audience for a product. So that is when I launched Culture and Quo, which is, a brand storytelling agency. So I work with companies to tell better stories.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Um, in telling stories in terms of, like, corporate America, because 'cause you're right, I feel like for me, when I think about corporate America, I think about how they try so hard to remove the people who
Yeah.
are either doing the thing or behind the thing, who had the vision for the thing. Um, how important is it to tell the story of the founder, the whatever the entity,
Yeah.
for the public? How much do we actually, like, take in, about the story or of the brand,
Yeah.
whether conscious or even unconsciously?
Yeah, I remember just nerding out on an article I read years ago about they did MRIs on two people, one who was telling a story and one was listening to the story. And the parts of the person's brain that activated as they were telling the story paralleled what was happening in the brain of the listener.
Oh,
So
wow.
we relate with each other on such deep levels.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're all so addicted to our phones and scrolling
Yeah.
because we're looking for those points of connection. We
Yeah.
wanna hear people's stories. So it's definitely a miss, I think, for a lot of brands that don't give it a lot of thought, like, how are
Yeah.
we connecting? If not, it's a CEO kind of bearing their soul and telling you, why they created their brand. It can just be in how we tell the stories of people who utilize the products that we create or the services that we give. But I
Yeah.
think all of that, is really, really important to connection. I think people, I mean, we
Yeah.
see it now even when you think about what's happening with Target, for instance, and
Truly.
people boycotting, people
Yep.
care.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
They care about where they spend their money, they wanna feel good about it. I have a
Yep.
client now who's she has a granola brand, and she started running ads with pictures of her and her grandkids, and now
Oh.
sales are skyrocketing because she cares, she
Yeah.
created this because she wants people to live healthier, and she wants you to know that she created this because she wanted something her kids could eat and her grandkids could eat, and that matters to people, people
Yeah.
click into that, so it's really, really important. I think it's also important, when you just talk about the people, who are working in the brand, it's important to stay
Mhm.
connected with that too.
Yeah.
Any given agency has tens to hundreds to maybe even thousands of people that work under them that all have
Yeah.
layered and varied stories
Yep.
that can contribute to the fabric of what makes a product or a service special. So
Yeah.
I think people are everything.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. I that reminded me of, years ago, there used to be a commercial on TV for Honey Bunches of Oats cereal, and it was, like, the some of the people who worked at the factory, and I'll
Yeah.
never forget the one woman
I
made me,
remember
like
that.
you remember,
I
like, she
remember
was I forget her name, but for me, she was the face of Honey Bunches of Oats.
Yes.
She just seemed so joyful, like, she really cared about the
She had,
product
like,
that
the
she was
net
creating.
braids and she would
Yes!
yes.
Yes!
I remember.
Yes! And
Yes.
that's a really good point because we do wanna connect with one another, and I think especially now as you mentioned, like, just looking at Target, for example, I think in general, we are looking for community, and sometimes because we're on our phones, like, we're gonna find that community online, so if it's, like, part of a brand that we like and we find, community in that as well, if they can identify with the things that we value as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think what we're experiencing now too as a society is just a real fundamental disconnect from that. I think there's just such a lack of empathy.
Ugh,
I think it's rooted in the fact, right, that we all see each other as monoliths in one thing, and
yeah.
we're not seeing the nuance, we're not seeing the complexity. So, I think it's important at every level of society.
Yeah, for sure. And I was seeing something online about how a lot of people are now turning to ChatGPT as like their therapist. And I
Mm,
was like, oh, that's so scary,
yeah,
because ChatGPT is like the ultimate yes person, right? And I think because we have just been, unfortunately, we've been so disconnected from one another, like we find it easy to find solace in like these inanimate things.
yeah.
So, yeah, we need to get back to the heart of things, which is just each other. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
we
it.
don't make a lot of time too, I think, for introspection and, like, reflection and thought. I think we're used to cramming, something into every aspect of the day. What I didn't mention about what was really a strong motivator for me in starting my own business was owning my time. You
Mm,
as much as corporate America fed into what I had historically defined as my ambition
mhm.
and my, drive to succeed, it didn't allow a lot of time,
Yeah,
for me to slow down and get to know myself and
yeah,
prioritize the things that were important around me. So it was a really important inflection point for me to think, I don't, I want something different. And I remember one of the first months, post everything sort of coming out of the haze. One, I had to kind of talk myself down, right? From scheduling every minute of my day. You'll do it on
yeah.
your own, even if somebody's telling you to do it.
Right, right.
So I had to get out of that habit. But I remember my littlest had think it was like just a pizza party on the lawn at his school. It was,
Mhm.
as they are, right? Like 1:30 in the afternoon when you're always,
Right,
who can make these things, right? But I
right,
could.
right,
'Cause I
yeah.
had just kind of created the space to be able to do it. And it was amazing. It was
Mhm.
amazing to be able to make the space and the time and to own my time in that way. And it just really shifted. Oh, there are different ways to live.
Yeah, for sure, and constantly being booked and busy is not a good
Mm-mm.
one. Yeah, and that's
No.
something that I'm, like, struggling with right now too. I
Yeah.
don't want to be busy, but, like, there are always so many things,
Yeah.
um, always competing, so I'm trying to figure out how to adjust my boundaries, honestly, with
Yeah.
myself. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Girl,
Yeah.
stop."
Look, those boundaries with yourself are sometimes the toughest ones to overcome. I
Yes.
think for me, a big part of, it was just asking myself, why does everything feel so urgent, right?
Mm.
Can I pace myself? Can I slow down? Why do I feel like I have to do it all today, Can I
Ooh.
do this part today and this part next week? Like, what's gonna
Yeah.
happen if I do that? Space things out and pace. Like,
Yeah.
there's a rush, there's an urgency. I don't know what that is, what we've taught ourselves about ambition and success, as if time is just gonna
Yeah.
expire so quickly, so we gotta get everything done. My relationship with pace has probably saved everything for me.
Ooh, pace.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Talk to me about what you've taught your kids about ambition and again pace and things like that.
Yeah. You
Especially
know
your oldest, who's
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, I feel like these have been, like, real-time lessons for me
hmm
because I've wanted them to learn,
yeah,
kind of by watching, especially my oldest because, as it is, what you got kids, you see yourself in them.
yeah, yeah,
The good, the bad, all the things, right?
yep, yep,
He's an incredible human. All 3 of them are, incredibly smart, had wonderful options when it came down to college time, and it was really, really important for me to quiet myself and
hmm
quiet everyone around him so that
hmm
he could really find out what was the best decision for him, like, what was the
yeah,
best choice. Because there was a very real good on paper, everyone is gonna think this is extraordinary choice, right?
yeah,
And it could have been the right choice. It could have absolutely been the right choice for him, but it was very important to me that he made the right choice for him,
yourself,
and
yeah,
make space because I don't think I always made that same space for myself.
hmm
So it's been a very important thing with me, with all 3 of my boys, to teach them to trust that voice, that
yeah,
is within them, teach them the value of quiet,
Yeah.
and what that means, outside of the noise of others, it was a hard lesson to learn. It's a hard thing to admit too, right? Because the worst thing you could say is you care about what other people think. Nobody wants to
Right.
admit that they care, you know?
Right, right, right.
So, but, to me, it was really, really important that he stay rooted in that.
Yeah. Ooh, that one is tough. That's something that I'm learning, myself. One thing that you mentioned in your TEDx talk was, of course, I'm paraphrasing, but you said something like, what your oldest son taught you was that they are their own independent
Yeah,
person, right?
yeah,
Like they are that we have the children, but they come out with their own beings,
yeah,
right?
yep,
And that's something that I am still trying to remember and reinforce in my own mind because my oldest son is just very, very different than I am
yeah.
in the best ways and in some ways that I'm just like, I don't understand. um so one thing that I think about is he's just so bright. I'm just like, you are if I had your brain, like I would be like over there right now, you
All the
know?
things. Yeah,
And I'm just like, I just want him to I have an idea of what he'd be good at, and I'm trying my best to be like, "No, give him room to explore. He's still
yeah,
learning. There's no rush. Like, he doesn't know himself yet. Yeah, he has, certain gifts, but like the world is big and,
wow,
bigger for him than it was for me because I didn't
yeah,
know, right?
yeah,
And now
yeah.
there's plenty of information. It's just so hard for me to like sometimes just take a step back and let him lead in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. Yeah, what I shared too in the TED Talk is it was a lesson that I feel like was definitely taught to me, because he was who he was. So when
mhm.
my, son was 4, we discovered that he could play music by ear. He was just playing these chord bells in the at preschool, and the teachers called us in, and I could still see my husband's face because we both were just like, "Where did this come from?" Like, because neither of
Right.
us are particularly musical. We met in
Mhm.
law school. Like, it's not like we were in a band,
Right.
and suddenly this kid is just playing this beautiful music, and he told us he sees colors when he plays, and shortly after that, we get him this keyboard, and he would just stay in his little room for hours just, like, dancing and playing music, and he has just been that way ever since. I mean, just he is a jazz pianist now, but creates extraordinary and beautiful music, but I'm like, "Oh, okay, he just showed us exactly who he was,"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we had to sort of get out the way and chart the path and do all the things for him, be able to sign him up for the music lessons, but it's
yeah.
all been very self-directed. And I think when kids show you that, we had the gift of being able to be shown that. It's like, "Oh,
Mhm,
this is bigger than I could have imagined for him," right? Like,
mhm,
I may have
mhm,
had the doctor lawyer dreams that, a lot of
mhm.
other parents have and limited him, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
never been able to see all these beautiful, beautiful things. So it's such a gift to them, and I
yeah,
can say that too. It is, being someone who, for better or worse, felt like there were a lot of expectations on me, to kind of
mhm.
just be a certain thing and go in a
Yep,
certain path.
yep,
And for so long, I didn't look in the other directions or really listen to these other parts of me. And it
yep,
was a loss, to not be able to explore those parts. So I don't want the same, for
yeah,
them,
yep,
but there is a very real anxiety type A part of me that's like,
yeah, yep,
even with his college choice, oh my gosh, this was hard. This was really,
yeah,
really
I can
hard. I had a,
imagine.
he chose the
Yeah.
one that's like 10 hours away. I mean, oh my gosh.
Oh, oh.
Like that, but it's also an amazing choice,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
know why he made it. It's like
yeah,
the perfect thing for him, so it's not easy.
yeah, I can imagine. I honestly was thinking about how from the first day I had my oldest, I've always had like this like I can't explain the word, but like this I guess anxiety that one day, yeah, he's gonna go to
Yeah,
college, but like, girl, he just got here. Like he's a
right?
newborn, relax.
I
So I
know.
could only imagine like you're in it
I'm
right
here,
now.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I remember feeling that way, like, I can't even imagine when that day comes, and it's like, "Oh, we're here. Here we are."
Right, right, right. And just know, just trust that, like, you raised an amazing human being who is going
Yeah,
to be more than okay. He's going to
yeah.
thrive wherever he is.
That's
Yeah.
that's the mantra constantly is and also
Mhm.
who I want him to be independent, and I want him to be
Yeah.
fearless, and I want him to
Yep.
do all the things, and it can't happen if I'm like,
Yes.
here,
Yes.
holding on to his leg.
Yes. Yes.
Which, I've thought about, but I'm not gonna do
Yes.
it.
So I have a couple of questions, like kind
Yeah.
of rapid fire. So first thing that comes to your head. So what is your favorite self-care ritual right now?
I have a space in my house, my favorite chair, and I drink some
Mhm,
tea and I wrap myself in a blanket. Sometimes my 8-year-old comes and snuggles too, but
mhm.
I love that space, just having a quiet space.
For yourself. Yep.
Yeah.
I feel that. What's a career moment you're proud of, but you don't talk enough about?
I guess this is yeah, I guess it's career. It's sort of career adjacent. During the pandemic, a friend of mine and I coordinated an event called Dear Mama, and it
Mhm,
was a combination art and kind of science event where we just talked about maternal health disparities in the
mhm,
Black environment. So we brought in doctors, but we
mhm,
also brought in poets and visual artists to depict stories of motherhood.
mhm.
It was supposed to be in person, but the pandemic happened, so we ended up
Right.
making it virtual. We did, like, a virtual gallery, and we had this whole day, and I think because we pivoted so much, it kind of just happened, but I look
Mhm.
back on it and I was like, "That was pretty amazing."
It sounds beautiful, like, the
Yeah,
meeting of science and art for Black maternal health sounds
yeah, it
incredible.
was and we raised money, which was great. We were able to
Wow.
pay all the artists, so it was fantastic.
Nice, nice. Um, what is one thing you'd tell your younger self just entering the workforce?
Probably sounds simple and a little cliché, but, like, you are enough.
Yeah,
As you are, you don't have to change a thing, you don't have to, you know, hide,
yeah.
you be who you are.
And then one final question, because life is complicated and there's just so much going on in the world, what's something that is currently bringing you some joy?
The women in my life, my, like, female friendships, I've had the same best friend since I was 14 years old.
Mhm,
We met our freshman year in high school. I have a great group of friends from college. Whether or not it's exchanging memes or
mhm,
getting on the phone with kids screaming in the back, whatever it is, like, I
mhm.
just feel like, it's such a grounding to have a
Yep,
community of strong and supportive women who believe in
yep,
you,
yep,
who gonna hype you up and you can hype them up,
yep,
so it's something that I consistently return to and, I don't know what I would do without that crew.
yep, yep. I was just thinking about my friends as you said that. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially my best friend, like, that is, like, half my heart right
everything.
there.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
We talk, like, 1,000 times a day. I'm sure she gets
Same.
annoyed because she's just like, "Girl, you know I have a deadline." I'm just like, "Okay, and pick up the phone, okay?"
I know it's a little codependent, but it's all good. I feel fine with it, so it
Right. Right. So where can the people find you online, and how can they
yeah.
support?
I'm on all the things, so you can find
Okay.
me on Instagram at Hey Faye McCray, same thing on TikTok and LinkedIn. But also I have a newsletter, What If It All Works Out, on
Mhm.
Substack. So I muse, I ramble, all the things, but I think it's okay. So check it out.
Yes. Yes, and I also am going to link all those, down below to
Yeah.
quickly, find her, but also your TEDx talk was really, really
Yes.
great.
Thank
So, we'll
you.
also link that down below in the show notes to go listen to and watch that as well. So,
Perfect.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate your time.
This was really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Well Sis. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a link in the show notes. Be Well Sis is hosted by me, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, and produced by Edit Audio. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, be well, sis.